No, headphones are up. Oh, I'll tell you what I've done. Right, yeah. Right, say hello, Jamie.
Hello, Jamie.
Now I can hear you because I've turned up the volume on my headphones.
That's a great start. I mean, podcasting pros here.
How many have we done?
24.
20. I mean, really, I should know by now, shouldn't I? And I see we both got the email about the jumpers.
The jumpers. Oh, yes.
Matching jumpers.
Matching jumpers and shirt collar.
Yes, you've gone for the collar out look, haven't you?
Not on purpose.
I tend to go for collar in, you see.
There we go. A bit more clerical then, isn't it?
That's great. Exactly, which is the look I'm very much after these days.
You carry it off very well.
Yeah, thank you. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you.
Now, I have... I feel I've let you all down.
When you say all, do you mean me and the cat that's here?
And the listeners, because I have been promising something rather special, haven't
I?
Oh,
yeah,
you
have.
Few weeks.
And I can see behind you something covered in a sheet, so you're about to do a big reveal.
No, that's just my washing hanging up in the spare room.
Oh.
Sorry for that. No, I was going to prepare a special newsy news singing treat.
Your magnum opus.
Yes, for us all to enjoy, in inverted
commas.
Well, I sat down this morning. What I was planning to do was do a kind of a multi-layered, multi-voice version of the UFO opening theme.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can imagine it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
News. And off we go.
News.
All I did was I succeeded in bringing all the neighbourhood cats to our front door, and that was about it. And I listened to it back, and I thought, I can't play this out. So it may never be heard.
Well, that would be a great shame if that's the case. But perhaps we can work on something when we do our Fab Live recording later today.
Maybe we will, yes. That's a fine idea, yes. Or not.
See what we can do. Especially because it will be joined by Chris Dale of the Randomizer.
I know, for our Merry Christmas edition.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. Anyway, we've got...
For Fab Live. You're talking podcast, aren't you?
Well, I'm talking both, actually, but we've slightly got ahead of ourselves.
We have, haven't we?
Shall we just...
We're getting all excited.
Start recording Pod 25?
Yeah, go on then.
This is Shane Rimmer, and you are listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's get started. Let's go.
Is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Here we are. Here we are again.
Unexpectedly as ever.
Yeah. Pod 25 of the Gerry Anderson Podcast, or as it's known on Twitter, hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. Oh, yeah.
Maybe we should rename the whole thing to that.
Hashtag Gerry Anderson Podcast. Baby.
Nah,
I'm Richard James, and you are?
Jamie Anderson.
Yes. I mean, you should know that by now, really, because there are 24 other pods to listen to. By the way, while I'm here, actually, if you want to listen to all the other pods, the best thing to do is to visit whatever platform you're listening to us on now, and maybe subscribe, so you get notifications of every new episode, and then take a look back at all the previous pods, all the various interviews and news and nonsense
Please
that we've
do
been
that
over the past 6 months. And while you're there, why not rate us and review us and share us with your friends? Yeah, got that out of the way early, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. You really nailed that, I think.
Thank you. Well, you know, I'm a man of the moment. I'm so not a man of the moment.
Where you are at the moment. So we've got our usual blend of nonsense.
Yes, we have. Coming up, of course, we've got some newsy news from the Gerry Anderson universe. We've got listeners' emails, quite a few to get through this week, which is fantastic. Thank you very much for getting in touch via podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. I've got some tweets to read out. And, of course, we've got Chris Dale's amazing randomizer. We're all, aren't we, crossing our fingers, legs, toes and everything that there's no more Torchy.
Yeah, everything we can cross is crossed.
Yeah,
it's quite painful,
really.
actually.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I wonder why you were sitting like that. So this is the Randomizer, where Chris Dale is presented with a random episode from the Gerry Anderson universe and gives us his thoughts and comments as he watches. And, I mean, a special thing we ought to mention is maybe for the next podcast, there might well be a randomizer featuring Chris, Jamie, and myself. That's the plan, isn't it?
That is the plan. I don't know how or if that will work, but
no,
it's a nice idea, isn't it?
It is a nice idea. Also, Jamie, what do we have coming up interview-wise later?
Well, it's all about Chris Dale this episode, you know.
Oh, is it now?
Yeah, because
Oh,
he discovered that he lived but 10 minutes away from the home of composer extraordinaire Crispin Merrell, best known for his work on Space Precinct.
Yes,
as
indeed.
you know, Lavender Castle, and
New Captain
Scarlet, and he also did the incidental music for the Firestorm minisode and has done some other bits and pieces for us in between. And he's a lovely chap. Chris went to visit him. They spoke about all those shows, but this week we're going to go with the first half of the interview, all about Space Precinct, in honour of the recent DVD and soundtrack release, which we'll talk about in the news section.
Yeah, I have to say, Chris posted a picture of Crispin Merrell. He has not changed a bit in the last 25 years since I last saw him.
Slightly annoying, isn't it?
How does he manage that?
Well, I mean, you haven't changed that much.
Well, do you think he's got rather like Oscar Wilde's picture of Dorian Gray, do you think Crispin Merrell has got a puppet, a marionette of himself up in the attic, an ageing marionette?
Exactly,
perhaps?
Same as you've got an ageing, wrinkly Orin.
Jamie, you can't keep that in. Wouldn't we all want an aging, wrinkly Orin?
I think I have to keep that. If you're hearing this now, it means I kept it in.
Yeah. Very good. So that's part one of Chris Dale's interview with Crispin Merrell. A little later on, composer extraordinaire. But first up, shall we dive headlong into some news?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit sad that we're not going to have your huge multi-layered intro, but
I could give you a bit of a news bed, perhaps, while you give us the news.
I think that might be really distracting. Anyway, you've got some news of your own to deliver, so
I have.
Save yourself.
True. That's true, I will. Thank you.
And let's go into the news.
Hi, Gordon Tracy speaking. It's time for the Gerry Anderson news.
A news bed.
Yeah. Perhaps you could sing it to wrinkly aging Orin, or whatever I said. Aging wrinkly Orin.
Oh, great.
Sounds filthy. Right. Well, if you are listening...
Yes. Which
now,
they are, I'm assuming. Yeah.
And...
Well, yes.
It is the 3rd of December. And it is before 7 p.m.
Yes.
UK time. Then you're still in with a chance of catching tonight's special Christmas edition of Fab Live.
Yes.
And why
tell us
is
about that, Jamie.
Well, I was going to get
you
you
were going to say,
that,
tell us about it, Richard.
That's fine. I was going to say, why is it a Christmas episode?
Oh, God, okay.
Richard?
So Fab Live is our almost monthly Facebook Live broadcast that Jamie and I present on the official Gerry Anderson Facebook page.
Present is a strong word.
Yes, true. And, well, this month's edition, December the 3rd, features none other than our very own Chris Dale live in the, inverted commas, studio.
Yeah, we don't know which studio. Oh, yeah, we're doing it in your studio, aren't
Well,
we?
we could come to you. I don't know. We need to talk about that.
I think it's easy to do it in yours. Anyway, let's talk later.
Sure. So Chris will be with us, hopefully giving us the benefit of his Gerry Anderson wisdom and wit.
He's going to show us up big time, I think, on that front.
Yeah, he probably will show us up. We play some silly games, Fab or Fib, Blankety Blank. Of course, we have Gerry Anderson news from the previous few weeks. But what we really love is your comments. It is a live broadcast over on Facebook, on the Gerry Anderson Facebook page. And we love to see your comments as we broadcast, your questions as well. And if you have any pictures you'd like us to show throughout the broadcast, or even bits of film. Did you see, Jamie, the tattoo that was sent to us this week?
I did. Goodness me.
Wowzers.
I mean,
we'll
it was
showing that on Fab Live.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's dedication, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. So if you're piqued, if your interest has been piqued by that, tune into the Fab Live broadcast December the 3rd on the Gerry Anderson official Facebook page. And do send any questions or pictures and so on to fablive@gerryanderson.co.uk. We'd love to hear from you. We'll read them out.
And if it's not December the 3rd when you're listening to this and you've missed it, don't worry. You can watch a replay of it either on the Gerry Anderson Facebook page or on the Gerry Anderson YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Or if you can't find it there, go to gerryanderson.co.uk/fablive, and all of our episodes are there listed in reverse chronological order. So you can watch the most recent first, is what I mean.
Good. God, we're all over the place, aren't we?
There's
literally no getting away from us,
there
is
is
there?
no escape. Sorry about that, everyone. Anyway, Richard, speaking of no escape from you...
Oh, yeah.
Space Precinct.
Oh, yes.
I mean...
It's a big month for Space Precinct fans, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Because this month has seen the release of the complete series in a 7-disc DVD set.
Ooh.
And that's the first time it's been out in 20 years or something ridiculous.
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's right.
And
as if that wasn't enough.
The 4 CD original soundtrack.
Yeah, that's great.
With a 64-page booklet written by, you'll never guess.
Not Chris Dale,
It's
by any
blooming
chance.
Chris Dale again. Can't get away from him either. Anyway, it all looks lovely. It sounds lovely.
I bet.
So go and grab a copy now. You can get it from the Gerry Anderson store and many other quality outlets.
Yeah, absolutely. People have been tweeting pictures, I know, over the last week or so as it has arrived seemingly prematurely for a couple of people, which is great. You know, when something just pops through the letterbox the day before you were expecting it.
I know. Have you got your copy, Richard? I don't have mine yet.
Now, Jamie, I have 50 copies of the soundtrack just delivered this morning.
Oh, of course.
For me to sign and send back to you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So I shall. That's my day.
Actually,
then, isn't it?
You're sending them on to Crispin Merrell.
Oh, will I? Right. Okay. Well, I'll need an address for that then.
We'll sort that out later.
Yeah.
More logistics for post-show chat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Space Precinct out on DVD. I mean, that's fantastic because I know, you can pick them up on eBay and Amazon and so on in sort of volumes with 2 episodes in. But some of the later ones, an absolute fortune you'll be paying for them if you can find them.
Yeah.
Episodes 23 and 24 and the later sort of 21, 22 are just, whoa. I mean, some people are being very cheeky and offering them for sale for hundreds of pounds, literally.
Wow.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
it's. I mean, while I'm not sure I necessarily approve of that, it does mean that there's a demand for it, and I've seen a lot of people tweeting who've seen that it's out and going, "Oh wow,
yeah,
this is such an amazing nostalgia trip," because it hasn't been available for so long.
Absolutely,
people are kind of given up on finding it, and now it's out. So
yeah. That's right.
Very exciting.
And the soundtrack as well, which would be amazing. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does sound very cool. Actually, I really enjoyed listening to it on headphones and hearing all the clever stuff that Crispin has done with kind of industrial sounds. And it's got a really specific feel, but also threading through elements of that fantastic theme.
Yeah,
which we all love. So, go and grab a copy.
Great stuff.
Richard, we were supposed to have a date on Saturday night, weren't we?
We were, weren't we, Jamie? Yeah. And you bailed on me, didn't you?
And I bailed because I'm a massive flake. But what were you up to? I want to know.
Well,
a little bit now.
Yeah, that's right. A little bit of culture for you, Jamie. I was lucky enough to go and see a production of a play called The Fat of the Land in Kent at the weekend. Now, you may or may not, dear listener, know much about The Fat of the Land, but would it surprise you if I told you it's actually a play based on a sitcom written by none other than Gerry Anderson? Yes,
wow.
I know, a sitcom. Or rather, a treatment for a sitcom with Ronnie Cass. And 2 or 3 years ago, Jamie very kindly gave me, I think it's about a 2-page treatment, was it, with a few bits of dialogue and a couple of scenes. Yeah, very, very short. And said, do you fancy doing anything with this? And short of screwing it up and throwing it immediately in the bin, I thought, well, I'll tell you what, I could write a play out of that. And I did. And it was performed at the weekend by the Blackham Country Players in Kent. It was actually a fantastic production. As chance would have it, I had Saturday night off from my production. I was in Swindon, and our last show was in the afternoon, so I bombed in the car for about 100 miles with a couple of the cast, and we 3 of us went to see it in the end. And it was actually very well done. I have to give out some special mentions to the director, Tony Ellis. And also, I must mention the cast: Julius Drake Brockman, Anne Greenfield, Aurea Ellis, Biz Portlock, Colin Parsons, Rosie Gable, Stephen Johnston, Kate Lake, Karen Vilney, and Caroline Aldis, who were all absolutely fantastic. I mean, in brief, the story is this. It might be quite interesting for listeners. So this was a Gerry Anderson sitcom that he obviously wanted to get off the ground and never quite happened. And his original story was about a man who lived in a crumbling old mansion and had to put it up for sale, only to find that the most obnoxious man in the village was going to buy it off him and I think turn it into a restaurant or something.
Something like
I think
that.
The original brief was. Can't quite remember. But anyway, all that there was on the page really were just a collection of characters, some rather outdated sort of 1980s attitudes to women.
Yes, not to be
which,
repeated.
Yeah. So a few changes were made, but some of the, most of the gags are still in the play, and they all went down very well, I'm pleased to say. And we had a splendid evening. You were missed, Jamie. Oh, and a very sweet touch.
Yes.
So it's all set in a sort of a living room of an old stately home. And on the mantelpiece, they had put a little toy Thunderbird 2.
Oh,
Isn't that lovely?
That
Just
is
as a little
nice.
touch. Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. So, and how nice to think that, as small as it is, there's another part of the Gerry Anderson kind of universe that's opened up a little bit for people to take a look at. It's quite nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Richard, how do you feel about an audio production of The Fat of the Land?
An audio production? Well, absolutely, if we could make that happen.
I think we could probably make that happen, don't you?
I think I could absolutely make that happen. I could get a cast together for that.
And that's an exciting thought. And that happened live right here on the Gerry Anderson podcast, Pod 25.
Doesn't happen often, so savour it.
No, that was our first idea in 25 weeks. But that could be quite nice, couldn't it? Because that's a nice way to make it accessible to lots of people without huge costs and struggle to get it onto telly or something. But that's great. Well done, Richard. I'm so glad you did it, and so glad it's out there now. And let's see if we can get it spread further and wider.
Yes.
That's a very odd sounding phrase. I don't know why I said that. So there you go, Off the Fat of the Land. And there's a bit about it on the Gerry Anderson website. So
there is, that's right.
Just,
if you just Google Fat of the Land and Gerry Anderson, you'll find it.
Exactly.
Lovely. Yeah.
Well done, Richard.
Thank you.
Now, if you want to grab some bits and pieces in the run up to Christmas, merchandise.
Oh, thank goodness for that.
Sorry, I should be more specific. Then there's new Gerry Anderson merch coming every week in the run up till Christmas. Mostly apparel-y stuff, mugs and caps and t-shirts and hoodies, all your favourite designs and logos and emblems on. Yeah. Because we've had so much demand over the last couple of weeks for new stuff.
Great.
There's more of those mentions in the listeners' emails coming up shortly. But if you go to shop.gerryanderson.co.uk and click on the new products tab, I think it's the first one on the left on the menu, then you'll see all the most recent things we've put out. And go grab it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who doesn't love Gerry Anderson merch, Richard? Especially when they get to sing about it.
Hey, I know. You want me to say it, don't you?
Not really. Anyway, that is all the news for this episode. Unless, as in the previous one, I missed news. Richard, you look like you had some news there that you wanted to
No,
share.
I don't have any news. I was just going to sing along to the closing theme.
Go on.
That was the news. That was the news.
Thank you very much. Not sure about the tuning there, but...
no, sorry. Well, it is early in the morning.
A little bit pitchy.
For me,
Yeah, never mind. Anyway, that is all the news.
Thank goodness.
It's a slightly quieter week, but in a way it's not, because I actually feel like the play is quite a big thing.
Yes.
That is
absolutely
new Anderson material.
Yeah.
Previously unheard of. It's not even... on the one hand, we've got Space Precinct, which obviously got a full broadcast run internationally, blah, 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 and has been missing for 20 years. But this thing's been gone for 35 years, and nobody knew about it. So it's all very cool.
And now it's a thing that's out there, that's right. I mean, it's really interesting to think, what would it have looked like? What would it have looked like had it made it to air as a sitcom? I mean, odd to think that we could now be talking about Off the Fat of the Land as part of the Gerry Anderson kind of, legacy and history.
I know, it's bizarre, isn't it? But there's so many unknown projects.
I'm sure. Of course, because almost compulsively busy man, wasn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He could never stop working. So that's why these things exist. And then it's thanks to lovely people like you, Richard, adapting them and bringing them out into the world. So thank you.
Shucks.
Right, that's enough of me being nice to you.
Yes, that'll never do.
Shall we have some listener emails?
Yeah, before we do that, can I just dive into Twitter and read out some tweets?
Really?
Yeah, well, people have been getting in touch with us, of course, on Twitter, which we love.
We love the Twitter tweets, yes.
That's right. Hashtag us Gerry Anderson podcast, or you can tweet me, Richard N. James, or Jamie, I'm Jamie Anderson. Phil Markham, for example, he said, I had a really enjoyable morning lying in bed listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast with Jamie Anderson and guest Nicholas Briggs. A great recommended, and I'm now in a mood to watch some Anderson stuff, he said. So, Phil, what did you watch? What did you go for, I wonder? The Incompetent Pilot tweeted to us, the amazingly entertaining Gerry Anderson podcast is a must for all Anderson fans. And a few people talking about Firestorm as well, of course. You say there's not much news, but of course, there's kind of rumbling news always going on now as Firestorm enters its pre-production, I suppose, ready for next year.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much going on. It's,
of course there is.
Slightly terrifying.
Of course, and not all of which we can talk about, or frankly would be particularly interesting to the average lister.
Now, a lot of it's pretty boring, actually, but
there's paperwork and
there's cool stuff.
There's
cool stuff too.
So Tony Presley said, a nice, exciting little show, well made. This is after watching the Minnesota pilot on YouTube. I hope it catches on to give today's children something to enjoy. I'm watching from England and I remember Stingray when it was first on. Blimey. Guy Shergold wrote on YouTube, no, not long enough, need more. Well, hold on to your hats, there's more coming. And interestingly enough, Nodmoz posted a rather pithy little statement. There is new Gerry Anderson stuff being produced right now. It's catching on, isn't it?
Yes, Richard, well done.
And finally, Richard Burton, of all people, got in touch. Say, very interesting. I loved the mention of the Slough trading estate in the end credits. This was where APF Century 21 was originally based and where I had the privilege of visiting and watching Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet being filmed back in the day.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So that was on the YouTube channel. I don't know if Richard listens to the podcast. If he does, it'd be great.
We'd love to know
get
more.
Your thoughts and send them into podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk and tell us how exactly you were involved and what you saw. That would be lovely.
Send us a voice clip.
Yeah, voice clips are always welcome.
Because nobody's doing that, are they?
No.
They're just sending us all these emails, but no voice clips.
I know people keep promising, but
Yeah.
What a promise is worth, eh?
Please try harder.
Exactly. So yeah, very easy to do. Just record a little voice clip on your phone and send it to us, podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and we can play it out next time.
Well, unless there's anything rude or defamatory in there.
Of course. But then we'll leave that to you.
Exactly. Thank you, Richard. Okay, shall we go straight into listener emails? We've got quite a few this week. In fact, I had the most amazing flurry of emails in the 36 hours before the podcast recorded.
Yeah.
I mean, we just... Sorry, I vibrated then. So yeah, the most amazing flurry of emails, and just too many to actually put in the podcast.
Yeah,
but do keep emailing in. So here is the start of our bumper selection of emails from this week's crop. Starting with you, Richard.
Thank you very much, Jamie. This is from Mark Simpson Wedge, who we know well. Hello, gentlemen. Thanks for mentioning my design of the randomizer in Pod 23. I was so pleased that Chris liked it. Yes, and we all did, Mark. That was great. I'm also happy that Firestorm will be made into a series. If you need any voiceovers, let me know so I can audition. Well, Jamie, I'm sure you'll be on the lookout, of course.
If there are any open audition type things, I will obviously will let everybody know.
That's great. I've been thinking about ideas for future merchandise, and I'd love to see some more pin badges of organisation logos. We've already got the International Rescue and Shadow logos. How about Spectrum, Win, or 88th Precinct? If possible, I'd also like to see pin badges of the World Military Forces from Captain Scarlet and Joe 90. Well, they would be rather nice. I've got a little Space Precinct pin badge, which was given to me by Christian Tarpey, and I think it came free with something back in the day. The shield.
I thought it might have been with the Sky press kit that was in that silver tube, but I know the one. Is it? It's a gold one. Gold little.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Something like that might be rather nice. Yeah.
I
also have a question for you, says Mark. Are there any plans to do something Space 1999 themed next year? Because not only will 2019 mark the 50th anniversary of man's first landing on the moon, indeed it will, but it will also be the 20th anniversary of the moon leaving the Earth's orbit. In case you missed that. That's quite a big thing that happened back in the day. The moon leaving the Earth's orbit.
Yeah.
In Space 1999.
How we miss it.
Excellent work. And that's from Mark. So, any plans for anything Space 1999 themed next year?
Yes.
What? What? Socks and that?
No. There's a couple of interesting things that I've got wind of.
Right.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So we can't talk about them now, but there's a couple of things in the pipeline. There's always a potential for these things to fall over, but there's some fun little bits of merch and stuff, and some slightly more significant things too. So
okay.
Very exciting.
Great. Well, there you go, Mark. So keep your ears peeled for that.
I wish I could
you
say
peel your
more.
ears? Pinned back, I suppose.
Pin back your ears.
Well, that's
the way you want to pin them forward, don't you, to get more of the
so you
sound?
can hear more. Yeah, I need to look into this, don't I?
Yeah.
I rushed into it and didn't think it through.
If you have any thoughts on the the aural equivalent of keeping your eyes peeled. Oh dear, no, don't send us any ideas.
Let's just leave it there, shall we?
Okay, Richard, I've got an email. We should move swiftly on, shouldn't we? From Duncan Wilson.
Ah, yes.
Who we hear from quite regularly, I think, and who tweets quite regularly.
Yep.
Duncan says, I have been rewatching Terrorhawks with my girlfriend and wondered how the idea of Kate Kestrel being a singer came about. The songs suddenly pop out of nowhere and then become a main feature in some episodes. Also,
bit like the podcast then, immediately, isn't it?
you're the podcast's very own Kate Kestrel. Also, how did they get away with SOS Mr. Tracy? Smiley face. Terrorhawks has a great soundtrack, so I wonder if there would be a possibility of people covering or reinterpreting these songs and original soundtracks in a David Arnold shaken and stirred style. Maybe with proceeds going to Alzheimer's Society. It's probably a logistical and rights nightmare, but it would be fun. All the best, Duncan. Now,
that's great. Do you know Shaken and Stirred?
Do you know what? I don't.
Well, I do. I've got it. It's a CD of Bond themes. And David Arnold, who produced a few of the later ones, got people like, I think Chrissy Hind and Jarvis Cocker and Martin Fry from ABC to reimagine all the old Bond songs, Diamonds Are Forever, Goldfinger, Live and Let Die, and so on. So that's that. Imagine getting that sort of calibre of artist along to sing some Terrorhawk songs. Be rather fun, wouldn't it? Yeah, I mean, maybe we could get Elton John and Kiki D to come in and do it with produced by our friend of the show, Stuart Epps. Stuart Epps, that's
maybe.
right.
I don't know. I think that very unlikely, Duncan, is my honest response.
Yeah.
There's some great Kate Kestrel songs.
Yeah.
A lot of them are lost, sadly. Tapes are lost. We recovered a couple a little while ago, but a lot of them don't exist, or certainly don't exist in entirety.
Also, frankly, if I may be so bold, you have to ask yourself the question, who would buy that? I mean, Duncan.
Yes.
Oh, that's it.
No, I know at least 3 other people who would probably buy it if it was on sale. So, Duncan, back to your first question of how Kate Kestrel and her singing stuff came about.
Yeah.
But basically, Christopher Burr, Dad's business partner at the time and co-producer on Terrorhawks, or co-creator, I guess, on Terrorhawks, was desperate to move into the music industry. So he saw this opportunity of working on a TV show and thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we could have some spin-off merchandise which was music related? So he suggested, let's get a pop star as part of the outfit and we'll put the songs in. And initially they both went, yeah, that's a great idea, fantastic. And then as soon as they started writing the scripts, Dad went, well, it's sort of difficult in half an hour show to suddenly stop, have her perform a song, and then carry on again. It's a bit of a storytelling nightmare.
Yes.
So that's that. And SOS Mr. Tracy, well, the song wasn't called Thunderbirds, it was called SOS.
Okay.
They mentioned International Rescue, Mr. Tracy, just a bit of fun.
Yeah.
There's no getting away with there, because that's sort of... I don't even know, is it parody? It's not really, it's just...
Well, not even parody,
it's just
really,
referencing.
is it?
There's nothing
right.
copyrighted about the name Mr. Tracy.
No, that's right.
But there you go.
Now, wasn't there a band called Transvision Vamp who had a hit with International Rescue or something in the 80s?
Are you thinking of Fuzzbox?
Fuzzbox, that's it. Yeah, wow. Sorry if I spat all over you then. Fuzzbox, yes, that's right.
Yeah,
so a very similar thing, I suppose.
Yeah, but Fuzzbox actually did use... copyrighted elements, and there was a bit of a legal battle back then.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, which Dad became involved in, and it was all very stressful and unpleasant. So
yeah, I bet.
Thanks for bringing that up, Richard.
Yes, thank you. Actually, talking of your dad, Jamie, it struck me on the last pod 24, that the latest one. At the very end, you, as you said you would, inserted that little clip from the time of your life with your dad, and it struck me that's the first time that your dad has featured on the podcast.
You're right, it is. It is.
Yeah.
We've got lots of tapes of him, which I at some point want to include.
Yes.
But yeah, it's funny that it just
Isn't it?
came up without thinking. So
of course, he's an ever-present presence with us, but as we do these things. But the first time I've actually heard his voice on the podcast, it's rather sweet, I thought. I have another email.
Do you?
Yeah, it's from Martin Watton.
Go on.
Hello to Jamie and Richard. I mean, Jamie and Richard.
Yes.
What?
Back on how it should
that's
be.
The way it is in the opening titles, the opening credits.
Yeah.
Gerry Anderson podcast. It doesn't have to be that way in people's
It's
emails,
alphabetical on first name and surname. So
okay. He says, you've recently put out a request for future merchandise ideas.
We did do that.
This has got my mind racing to the possibilities of what the most hardened and jaded Gerry Anderson obsessive could desire. There are a few of them out there, I've met them. Just imagine next Christmas, the snow is falling outside, but you're inside around a roaring fire with good friends and good cheer. You reach for that 7-inch piece of vinyl with the comforting light blue label and slip it onto the turntable. After lowering the needle to the platter, you raise a glass of mulled wine and know deep inside that everything is perfect. Best wishes, Martin Watton.
And the proposed product...
Yes. 'Cause it's not entirely clear there, is it?
Well, because you need to see the attached image, really. So it's a 33 RPM mini album
Yeah.
called Newsy News... Sorry, I must get this right. Called Newsy News with Richard James. And he's done a beautiful cover there featuring you, UFO.
Yes, there we are.
UFO from UFO, an Angel Interceptor, the Island from Black Orchids, a place in Firestorm, the Tracy Brothers. And also a couple of notes saying it includes a sing-along lyric sheet, which would be essential for the News song. And also, there's a great little graphic there of what looks like Orin and Took on ice skates, introducing Space Precinct 2 brackets on ice. 21 minutes of newsiness.
Lovely. Well, let's show this on Fab Live as well so people can see the picture.
We absolutely will.
That's great. Isn't that lovely? Thank you for that, Martin. I think that's a great idea, and I think it'd be sure to get to the #1 slot for Christmas.
In the vinyl charts.
Yeah, absolutely. The vinyl charts. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Well, that's a thing.
I know it is. I know it is. Yeah. It's all the rage again. I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Vinyl's cool.
It's very cool.
Like wearing your collar tucked in your jumper, isn't it?
Yes.
It's that cool.
We're so cool. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
Shall we have another email, Richard?
Yeah, go on.
I've got one, which you'll be happy with the start of. Hi, Richard and Jamie.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, you see, it's that easy.
It all balances out, doesn't it?
It does.
Just wanted to say thanks all the way from Sydney, Australia.
Gosh, good day.
Your podcasts are so enjoyable and well put together. I think he's mocking us there.
He might be very slightly.
Love the humour, the interviews, and the banter.
You're definitely mocking us.
Yeah, thanks though, Paul. I've always been a huge fan and still am. I still collect Anderson memorabilia and would love you guys to do a show on this. I'm sure many of your listeners are also collectors and would enjoy such a segment. Keep on, keeping on. Warm regards, Paul. And Paul followed up with another email.
Yeah.
Where he did actually send us some bits and pieces. So, following up from my earlier email about a collector's podcast, attached are some photos of part of my collection. Hope you enjoy. FYI, the small pewter Thunderbird 2 in the photo is like the one your father had on his desk in a photo I've seen. You're right. It's a limited edition one and quite rare, I think. Cheers, from Paul.
Nice.
So thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
A merch one would be quite fun. I just worry about the lack of visual stimulus.
Yeah, that's right.
But there's so much. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen it, Richard. There's the complete Gerry Anderson memorabilia or collector's guide, which is a very thick tome.
Yeah.
I don't think it's been updated for like 20 years, but even then it was vast.
Wow.
So there's just so much stuff.
Yeah,
but maybe we could do a segment on quirky bits of merchandise or something once in a while.
Yes, well, that would be fun. I mean, it'd be easy enough. I mean, on Twitter, if you want to hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast and tweet us your merch stories. We've all had a favourite piece of Gerry Anderson merch growing up from back in the day. If you've got a particular story about finding your mole buried in your garden, or your Thunderbird 4 disappearing down the plug hole, or
that famous one,
your sister being sick on the Space 1999 Eagle Transporter.
That's one of the famous ones. Or the Eagle Transporter with the radioactive canisters being lost in a garden somewhere and then being dug up years later, and someone, slightly ridiculously due to the size, going, oh no, I'll have to report this to the government.
That's right.
So
tweet us your merch stories. We'd love to know if you've got a favourite piece of merchandise or toy from back in the day, and tell us all about it, where you got it from, what it means to you, if you still have it. That'd be lovely. Another email here then from Stephen Watson, who says, rather disappointingly, hello Jamie, hello Richard.
Oh, we both get our own hellos there.
That's true.
Richard.
I've been an avid listener of your excellent podcast since Pod Zero.
I don't think we had a Pod Zero, did we?
I think he sort of means the little prequel that we did.
But that was Pod 1.
Yes, I know.
I mean, this goes back to the numbering issue we had, so let's not dig into this. Do carry on.
It brightens my drive to work every Monday morning. Well, that's nice to hear. Thank you both so much, and definitely not forgetting Chris, he says. And Marina, of course, yes. Something I've ummed and ahed about since the start is whether an app I wrote for Apple's iPhones and iPod Touch is a suitable subject to mention on your podcast. Well, Stephen, I guess the fact that we're mentioning it here would suggest that it is a suitable subject to mention. I won't bother to rewrite what's on my website, so I'll give you a link here. And essentially, you go to blacktablet.co.uk/identicode.html. blacktablet.co.uk/identicode.html. Obviously, he says, I make a little from each purchase, but I really did it for other Gerry Anderson fans like myself who never had or lost their cardboard decoder, and yet still have copies of that amazing TV Century 21 magazine to hand somehow, and yearn to decode the messages at the bottom of the pages. Isn't that brilliant? I'd be pleased to hear your thoughts, whatever they may be. All the best, Stephen. Stephen, I think that's excellent.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have to admit, I was not aware of this. I'm just going to the Identicode thing because I want to read out what's on there.
Yeah.
So because I missed TV21s, although I've seen many, I was never really aware that at the bottom of each page, or some pages, were printed some secret codes. And as he says, at one point a decoder was given out with the magazine. But lots of people missed it, they never saw it, and they didn't know how to decode these messages.
Great.
So he says the original issue of the comic on the 23rd of January 1965 came with a code breaker, but 50 years later, they were a rare beast indeed, possibly chewed and mouldy as they were made of thin card and paper. But the app allows you to decode the messages.
That's wonderful.
Which is a really cool idea. So
that's really good. Yeah, Stephen, well done. And frankly, we don't mind you making a little bit from each purchase, do we? Because that's going to solve a lot of people's problems trying to decode those messages at the bottom of the pages.
They're very cool. Very, very cool.
Yeah. Really good. That's great. So if you have a question for us or a thought or a comment you'd like us to read out, do drop us a line at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk.
Oh, yeah.
If we can't answer it, we'll try and find someone who can. We normally can. Find Chris or AC or someone to give us a line.
Someone brighter than us to answer it.
Yeah. I've got a few more comments about the podcast. We've been asking you to leave us some reviews because we always love it when you subscribe to our podcast and rate us and review us. Megan, actually, on YouTube, where Jamie also posts each podcast, took note of the fact we were both wearing our scarves for the last podcast and said, greetings from a blazing hot day down under, lads. While you're complaining about the cold, I'm wondering whether I should put on the fan and the air conditioning while wearing a t-shirt and shorts.
All right, show off.
Imagine that. Megan, you lucky thing. Adrian J. Andrews says, exceptional. I've been a Gerry Anderson fan for as long as I can remember, and I'm delighted to know that Jamie's continuing the legacy of his brilliant father. Richard and Jamie's haphazard style make both the podcast and Fab Live a huge amount of fun. And it's clear that they both enjoy every broadcast as their enthusiasm is contagious. Thank you both. You're both FAB. Well, thank you, Adrian. That's great. Meanwhile, on Stitcher, Lewis Finch wrote a great show that matches the excellent work both Jamie and Richard do for Fab Live every month. All the content is excellent, from the interviews to the randomizer, well worth a listen. And finally, Lance H73 on iTunes left us a review saying, love this podcast. The presenters are engaging and funny and really know their subject. Must be talking about you there, Jamie. If you love all things Gerry Anderson or only have a passing interest, this podcast is for you. Highly recommended.
Even if you've only got a passing interest.
Yeah,
amazing.
We love reading your reviews, especially the good ones. So please do leave them on whatever platform you're listening to us on, and rate us and review us and share us. And
do all the usual things that we ask you to do every week.
Usual. That's right. Yeah,
Thanks.
Great.
Thanks.
There we are.
Is it interview time?
I suppose it must be, really, mustn't it?
Yeah, we should probably do that. So, Crispin Merrell. I mean, he's a composer of some note.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that he was Young Musician of the Year in 1990, maybe.
Crikey.
I may have made that up, but there's something like that I remember Dad saying, and that Dad was always very proud of their association, and they got on from the word go. Anyway, so Chris Delwyn had a chat with Crispin all about his Space Precinct work. So this is part 1 of 2 of our interview with Crispin Merrell.
Well, hello, Chris.
Hello, Crispin. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm the composer for Gerry Anderson's Space Precinct, a 24-part monster of a series, and I'm very happy to be here to talk to you about it.
Well, you're here because this is your house. We are We only live about 10 minutes away from each other, oddly enough, so it was very easy to...
It's very convenient.
To come and set this up. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you didn't just do the music for Space Precinct. In terms of Gerry Anderson, you also did Lavender Castle and New Captain Scarlet, and one or two other things that we'll get to later. But it's a very exciting time for Space Precinct fans at the moment, because not only is the series being re-released on DVD for the first time in about 20 years in the UK, we also have, courtesy of Network, we have a 4-CD Space Precinct soundtrack set on the way, being released the end of this month. But can we just take you back to 1994 to start with?
Okay.
And if you can tell us how you got involved with Space Precinct in the first place.
Well, funnily enough, I was working on a film feature called Death Machine, and that was also done at Pinewood. So that gave me the confidence to more or less take on anything after that. And my mum was feeling pretty confident that I could more or less tackle anything. So she sent off one of my cassettes. She normally does, send it out to companies and asked me to sign. So she said, okay, here's another one, sign here. And I noticed at the top it said Gerry Anderson. I thought, okay, I don't really expect to be hearing back from him. But anyway, yeah, send it off and see what happens. So she did, and Suzanne Muller, who was Gerry Anderson's PA at the time, said, yes, it's really great. So she got in touch with Gerry, and he got in touch with me. And I think my mother was called by a different name at that time, Diana Sugden, because she was using that name as an agency for other people that she had on her books as well. And so I think it was Gerry who said, I think it was Suzanne actually who said, is Diana Sugden there, please? And my dad answered the phone and said, no one there. Goodbye. He put his phone
Oh, no.
down. And so my mum had a very good, interesting conversation with my father after that. And so eventually the next time, I think Gerry it was who called back, said, can I speak to Crispin Merrell? And so he got in touch with me, and had a nice conversation. We just basically arranged to meet in Pinewood. And I was really over the moon, because I thought, wow, this is Gerry Anderson. It's going to be great. I'm going to be, very interested.
That was a name you were already familiar with.
Oh, yes, yeah, throughout my childhood, yes, very much. And I really loved all the shows. And when I was a kid, I couldn't wait to hear Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet and all of these great shows. And so it's very much imprinted in my mind of, Gerry Anderson making really exciting television shows for kids. So I was really excited to get to work,
Fantastic. So good old mum for sending that through.
Yes, yeah.
So what was your process for scoring an episode? And did it stay the same throughout the run of the show, or did it evolve as the show continued?
I think when you start to write for episode 1, episode 2, you're finding your feet, really. So it's quite an expectation, not just from others on me, but myself. I'm trying to establish the characters, the development, the whole story, the shape of things to come. Of course, the major theme was taken care of, so I was happy with that. But the main essence of the show really wasn't firmly imprinted on my mind until we got into episodes 5, 6, 7, So I was still finding sounds that were, kind of playing. I was playing and toying around with, making sure that it was in keeping with the show, but also having a little bit of an edge so that it was quite exciting, or, things that people hadn't quite heard before, and how to utilize and blend and manipulate the sounds to develop the characters. And after a while, you find your feet, and you find that you can, establish an inventory of sounds that are your go-to sounds. You say, right, use this one because I know that works for the Brogan family. I know this works for Jack and Jane. I know this works for, the comedy act between Beazle and Orrin and that kind of stuff. So I was really, at the beginning, yes, sort of getting a taste of the kinds of sounds that I wanted to introduce. But after a while, you get to get into a rhythm, go to those sounds, develop, especially when you're developing sounds that for a two-parter or something like that, then you've got more flexibility to develop those sounds. And then Gerry throws the firewood in on your lap, and
which is probably my favourite score.
Yeah,
from the series, that one, but mammoth undertaking.
Well, it was. I mean, John Glenn asked me, what do you think? And I said, well, it sounds great. And he said, we put a temp score on it. It was Karloff's Comida Burana. And I thought, well, that's great, but how am I going to, create that in 10 to 14 days? But I managed something, and it sounded good. And I got the family in to sing, the choir on that. And I think, like yourself, there's a bit of a soft spot for that episode because it just has a bit of gravitas. There's a bit of more time to reflect on things. It's quite philosophical too. And the music works very well for that kind of thing, especially when it comes to character development and then building the story. And then you've got a two-parter, so you can develop more themes.
You get that cliffhanger as well.
Exactly. Yes. So there was excitement built up with tension throughout, and it was a well balanced episode. Both of those. Yeah, Fire Within 1 and 2. Yeah.
Yeah. I think probably those are like the pinnacle of what that show was and potentially could have continued to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Gerry's sort of pitch, the way he would try to sell Space Precinct to investors and to audiences, was to say essentially Hill Street Blues in space.
Yeah, that's right.
Were you thinking of scoring it as a sci-fi show or as a police show? Because I was listening to some clips earlier, and a lot of not so much the way the music is realised, but the way it's constructed, it could be like an episode of Hill Street Blues or of Starsky and Hutch. There is a nice sort of driving beat to it a lot of the time, and slightly 70s-ish sounding, but also a bit sci-fi twisty noises in terms of the soundtrack there. Yeah,
that's very interesting, actually. It's a good question. I kind of had that in my mind, of this Hill Street Blues, Starsky and Hutch, all of the shows that I like, especially Hawaii Five-0, which was my personal favourite. And even the Persuaders or something like that, So all of these things go through your mind. You're saying it's excitement, it's covert. There's a lot of intrigue. There's a lot of dynamic action. So, yeah, I think Gerry was trying to build up that or establish something which did feel familiar in space. So I suppose I was drawing on the familiar first and then thinking, well, how can I tweak that to make it space-like? And it's not too difficult to achieve when you're working with synthetic sounds, and you've got quite a vast array of different synthetic sounds, which, sound effects and musical sound effects which you can draw upon. So it's not too difficult to tweak a very innocent sounding track, very, very Hill Street bluesy, and then tweak it to make it sound quite space-like. I mean, I've always thought that Star Trek, Alexander Courage's main theme for the series was very much an awards night or an awards ceremony kind of piece, for the Oscars or something, until you have that high soprano, and then you have a couple of weird sounding effects. I don't know if he used a theremin, I can't quite remember, but there wasn't much to it. You could quite easily imagine that particular piece being used for that ceremonial occasion. But for Space Precinct, it was very much capture the excitement, make it sound quite familiar, but by the same token, bring us to the otherworldly aspect of and danger of things. Yeah.
Oh yeah, got to have some danger. Did you ever get to actually go down to the set, meet any of the actors, see what you were scoring?
Yes, yes, I did. Yeah, nice. I met Ted Shackelford, very nice chap, lovely bloke actually, and Rob Youngblood. I met them both in the corridor as they were coming down, saying, "Great music's great, lovely to see you," and everything. And they were really nice. It was a nice team actually, very, very nice people to get to know and to socialise with. And then I went down to the canteen and met Simone Bendix and everything. And it was quite easy, really. They were all quite relaxed about working on this show. There was no real tension that I could see or feel. So it had a friendly atmosphere to it, and I liked the sets. I did walk around and have, but you had to be careful. You did feel as though you're going to fall through one of the floors at once. So I was very aware that it was quite noisy every time the wooden floorboards and everything else like that. It did feel as though you had to be quite tentative, when you walked on the set. And of course, when it's finalised and the audience sees the final show, it doesn't look anything like that. It's got that gloss or that sheen to it, which. But I saw the grit. Yeah.
Yeah. I think over the passage of time, more and more viewers have as well. It's still lovely, and a lot of it does still hold up even now in the visual department.
I find it quite charming, actually. That's the word I would use for it. Is that it is quite British by the same token, and that hasn't got the same polish as Star Trek.
No.
But then, to be fair, Star Trek didn't in the beginning, so this was only one series. Had it developed, into the Battlestar Galactica, very popular series as well. I think it would have looked really good. And I think just with a bit more extra polish, a bit more, consideration, I think it would have gone on to be a classic. Really. Yeah.
Because a lot of the nightlife of Demeter City is, I've always found interesting, because it's like, let's predict what the future of a night out will be like. Well, it's going to be like the 80s. It's going to be like it is now, essentially. But put a brightly coloured wig on somebody. Yeah. And of course, there's several episodes on that show where there's scenes in nightclubs and discos, and you are sort of tootling away in the background with some disco track or something. Are those tracks that now you listen back to and think, oh, if I could have a word with him about something that I was doing there, or are you still keen on those?
It's that's another interesting question. I had to write the music after I saw them dancing. Right. So I had to look at some of the characters' movements and find some kind of meter. And I think I established that with Simone. I think she was my main focus.
Was that Predator and Prey when she's on the stage in the green and black feather things?
The Taunt or something like that I'd written. And that's a tricky part to get right first, because then as the scenes develop, the character is not quite as in sync with your music as you would like. So you kind of find a common ground, but you can also write the tempo in, so you can up the tempo here and bring it down there, just to try and make it seem natural. I think that's really what I'm after, is to make you believe that you are actually in that nightclub listening to that music with those people dancing. And so yes, it kind of, that scene brings back thoughts of Brazil and some sort of parade that these people will be involved in, and just came back to a nightclub just to chill out and relax and to have a party after the party, kind of thing. But it did present a challenge at first to choose a piece of music suitable for scenes or similar scenes. But in the end, I think I got there, and I think it's sad. At least to me, it looks natural. Yeah.
Well, there are several disco and nightclub scenes. Obviously, most notably Predator and Prey, but there's also Illegal and The Witness, The Forever Beetle.
Yes.
Obviously, when you started the show, you're having to compose every piece of music, because none of it exists. By the time you reach the end of the show, you have more of a library to call on. Were you keen to do that, or would you prefer to keep doing new stuff whenever possible?
Oh, I think, Chris, for my sanity, I needed to do that, because it's so hard every episode to try and establish the things that matter, because we care, because I really care about it. I think that's the thing that when people say, oh, so much pressure, so much of a tight deadline to work to. And it's because I care that makes it stressful. So to have that library to draw back on, to concentrate then on more important scenes and give them even actually the finesse that I perhaps wanted for scenes in other earlier episodes, it's rather nice. So I can then concentrate on building up a scene that's quite important, and then relying on those edits that I can tweak, move around a bit, for other less important sequences. So yeah, I think it started really happening around episode 11 or episode 12, but and some of these episodes I knew had a fair degree of build-up or a fair degree of mystery about them, and you can sort of pinpoint it if you keep a small database in your mind. I mean, I can't go into detail and have all of those tracks buzzing through my mind, because that's just impossible, but you can sort of see, all right, well, there was a sequence there where this character did this and the response to it was that, and I think the music was slightly low key, so that might work for this particular section. And if I can't use the edits from the original pieces, then I can load up the computer and look to the pieces that I built up, and then choose some elements of it that I know will work. So, for instance, if a piece is pretty orchestral, I think, I like what the brass is doing, I like what the strings are doing, but the percussion is way too much, so you can take the percussion out or introduce other sounds as well. So there's a fair degree of flexibility when you're editing, so it's not so brutal as if you have to use one section of a piece and then hope that it works. Sometimes it does, and it's wonderful, because then I can go and have a cup of tea and it's great. But for a majority of the time, you're focusing on specific scenes to the story which are quite important, but it's really good. And it's actually, I think, if we had a second series, it would have been a dream, because then I could just go constantly back and say, how can I then manage this music into this particular sequence? There's always going to be a special episode like The Fire Within, where you need to establish certain things, because otherwise it's just not going to feel special. It's gonna feel same-o, and I hate that. So for it to feel that kind of have that identity, I focus on the things that bring the identity into that episode, and then draw back on those elements which I know work in other episodes. Yeah.
Well, that is something that's quite in keeping with the way Barry Gray would have worked. Like there's music that he composed for Supercar in 1960 that's still turning up in 1974 in Space 1999. Sure. And when you hear those cues, there is a sort of like coziness to it. It's like, oh, there's that piece that I really like. I haven't heard that for a few shows. And in Space Precinct, there are things like there's that one cue that always accompanies shots of the station house. Or there's that one happy ending cue. And as we're going through making the soundtrack, for those who don't know, I was asked to write the notes for the soundtrack set for Space Precinct. And
very good they are too.
Well, thank you kindly. Yes, I haven't seen them yet, but fingers crossed. As we got to nearer the end of the series, I was hearing bits of music come up that, that was composed for that episode, but I know it more from this scene over here, which I found quite interesting. Did you ever feel that you were sort of following in the footsteps of, say, people like Barry Gray or Derek Wadsworth or any of the other, I mean, particularly Barry Gray, as he's such a sort of legend in the Gerry Anderson music scene, for lack of a better word?
No.
Just doing your own thing.
I never felt that way, but what I did feel was a great affection for his music, because I've been brought up with it. I love it. So I felt a bit of his music as more as a friend, really, to guide me in certain sequences, to say, he would have done it this way. And in fact, people like Miklos Rosa, who Barry Gray was influenced by, would have done it a certain way. And then people like Erin Korngold, or then you go even further back to Max Steiner and other people like that who were influences to other composers. Then you can see the lineage behind it. So I don't feel as though I was following any footsteps. I just felt that I had a great palette to draw upon and to utilize some of the sounds that were used in great productions. And a lot of Barry Gray's music is great, so it's not too difficult to find something you like and say, hey, that's a really good idea. I might just develop something similar myself.
So the music for Space Precinct, you obviously composed almost everything. I think there's one vocal track or something you didn't have anything to do with?
Well, I did. There was the vocal track was in Flash, I believe, which was ended up as it was a country and western style. There's a piece of music in there which first my dad had a go at this rockabilly style track, and then Gerry said, well, that's not really working, so we wanted something really traditionally sounding country music, country and western. So I think it ended up as something like "Send a Letter to My Darling" or something like that.
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
It is. It's kind of Tammy Wynette style, so it's really old school. And I introduced that into it, but I still wrote it. I just used a vocalist to enhance it, to make it sound more authentic. But I think there was only one track that I've ever done in a series, and that was in Scarlet, where I've allowed somebody else to write a piece of music, because there just simply wasn't time for me to get authentic with it. So so I did, but with Space Precinct, no.
And you were realising the music. It was just you, wasn't it, on Space Precinct, or were there? Yeah. So you entirely composed and performed, scored the whole lot. Because I know on Scarlet and Lavender Castle, did you have an orchestra on Lavender Castle?
No, I didn't have an orchestra. I think that was the whole lot, but that was a lot easier. I say that because you're building up a huge orchestra in your library to cater for a couple of seconds for a scene, and then you've got to take it all down again and work on another sequence. So that was actually condensed film. The only thing that was utilising performance, let's say, was the opening and end credits to Space Precinct and Captain Scarlet. Yeah, but no, Lavender Castle was all done with the boxes. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
So I'm going through your notes for the Space Precinct set, because I've got your cue notes, and I'm looking at the names of certain tracks, and one or two of them are quite rude, a bit naughty, and it always seems to be similar kinds of things. I'm getting the feeling that anything set in the Brogan household, or anything involving Jack and Jane, was met with sort of, oh God, like anything with Matt Brogan. Matt Brogan is not listed as Matt Brogan in your notes, it's always snotty. And similarly, anything with Haldane and Castle is often named something like, oh no, not this again, or something even naughtier. What were your thoughts on the show as a whole generally?
Well, you must remember, Chris, that I was under a lot of pressure.
You were much younger in those days as well.
I was younger as well, so I needed some form of entertainment to keep me sane.
You didn't know any of this would be published years later.
And I had no idea it was going to be published later on, in my esteemed career. No, so I was, I just had to have a little bit of fun with it. And I knew it wasn't going to, unless I kept some of these. I mean, Count in a Costume was quite good.
Yes, which is on the set.
Which actually was originally the naughty word, but my mum was doing the cues to send off. You see, for PRS to be registered, and she said, "No, we can't have that. We can't have that." And I said, "Please keep it in. No one's gonna know. It's fine." And so she changed it to the Count in the Costume, and I went up to Lyndhurst and met with Paul Langwade, who was doing all the dubbing and the mixing for that show. And he said to me, as soon as I walked through the door, he said, "You chickened out, you did."
Oh.
I said, "I didn't, honestly." Yeah. So there was that element of, of tweaking things, which to keep me entertained, just to make me, to get through the night, burn the midnight oil. But majority of the time, it's good to focus on the titles in a kind of pragmatic way, in a practical way, because then you can refer to them, much later when you've forgotten all about the kind of music you use. You say, oh, well, that's because that title's got action chase, then you've got a good idea that it's going to be, it's going to work with a certain scene. But for those sequences or those scenes rather, which I had done so many times before, and it was the cheesiness was getting too much for me, then of course I would have come up with some colourful titles to make it entertaining.
So we've mentioned The Fire Within, which obviously is my favourite. I think we said it's your favourite. Any other standout episodes either of the show or in terms of your experience of creating the music for them?
Yes, I think I was finding my feet with the first episode, which I believe is called Double Duty.
Yeah.
But it was episode 2, which was Protect and Survive, that I really found a voice for Space Precinct. I mean, the established shots of Space Precinct in the beauty shots, let's say, those were sorted out by then. But this time round, I had the opportunity to really work on the action sequences and to establish some really good rhythms as well, some loops and stuff that I didn't have time to do in the first episode. So yeah, Protect and Survive was one of the ones that I look back and say, yeah, because Gerry phoned me after I'd completed that episode and said, everyone has said to me they absolutely love that episode and what you've done. The music is out of this world. So it has a special place in my heart because it's something that I achieved quite early on, and I knew then that I had his backing for many other episodes to come because he was so thrilled with that one. So yeah, Protect and Survive is a personal favourite. I did enjoy Time to Kill. I thought that was all bells and whistles, and it kept me up nights, but it was worth it in the end.
That's another one where the cue notes are quite interesting as more and more characters are bumped off. It's
yes,
like, oh yeah, I've got rid of that one. There's another one gone.
So that was a toughie, but I think I pulled it off. Yeah, Body and Soul was another one. The nice choirs which came in on top of some very heavy rhythm. It worked really well, and it had these lots of chases and the mysterious elements to it. I like that. Deadline was another favourite of mine. And going further on, I suppose Smelter Skelter was another one I really enjoyed. Predator and Prey. All of these kind of episodes had an identity, and that's what I was really pleased with. Is that even though it's amongst a similar kind of, it's in a similar vein to other episodes. There are sequences and parts of that particular episode where I find that it gives it an identity, and I look back on it with fondness.
Because it's interesting, I can think of at least 3 episodes off the top of my head where they've got to escape from the spaceship before it explodes.
Yes, yeah.
And you could have just put the same music as last time over that scene, but most of the time you would record something new.
Yes.
And it always works. It always makes the whole sequence feel just that little bit different, even though visually it is very similar. They're running down the same circular corridors and all the rest of it.
And would anyone know, really? That's the thing. So there is that element which you draw upon for editing. You say, well, would anybody really know about when it's caked with effects, sound effects and everything else, and dub and Foley, the rest. So is it going to be appreciated that I've done a new piece for this particular sequence? But I think you need to do it to evolve, to better yourself. And there's always that part of me that would have been dissatisfied if I hadn't gone and used that approach, especially when you consider that I needed a bit of entertainment myself. Otherwise, all I'm doing is being a glorified editor, for various things. And I just feel that to give myself an edge and to better myself with every episode until I establish more or less the identity for Space Precinct, which I think came around sort of episodes 18, 19, 20, that kind of thing, because I remember I think 18 used a lot of edits, and so then you've established some really a good foundation for a series when you can draw upon so many edits and know that it can still sound fresh.
So you get to the end of Space Precinct. This would be 95, would it? It started in 94.
Yes. It was mid 1995, I think, because it was the session at CTS for the orchestra was about 28th of June, I believe, in 94, and then it was a whole year of a really punishing year to deliver. So I would say it's around July, August or something like that of 1995. And I think they had a party to celebrate the end of it all. Yeah.
Was there any hint or hope that there might be more? And
Oh, well, I think, talking about editing, I think Paul Langwade was interested in editing for a second series for me. So we had talks about that. And I think there was hope that it would go to a second series. But I had my doubts. I don't know, because anything can happen, you know, that's the thing.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, even J.K. Rowling pushing her book around for, you know, to many, many publishers. In the end, she found, somebody who had faith in her, that kind of thing. And she's gone on to be the success she is today. I think given that Space Precinct had already sort of got into the minds of those people, youngsters, I think given another series, it would have developed, and I think it would have been quite good. And I think by the time it got to series 4 or 5, it would have really established itself, and people would have got into it, and I think there would have been even more development in terms of the writing and extending the characters' capabilities, and really, I think it would have been a very, very good series. It wasn't handled very well, so I think that was the downfall, really. So it was a good series that had potential. And I think looking at Fire Within, it had more potential than perhaps people appreciate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because I find with Space Precinct, the first half is very much a police show that just happens to be set in space. And then around the halfway point, it suddenly becomes a sci-fi show that happens to take place in a police station. And most of those episodes are much stronger. So, yeah, I would have loved to have seen it continue. But even if it had continued, would you would have come back to do the music?
Oh yeah, sure.
You would
sure.
have.
Yeah,
assuming you would have been asked.
Yes.
But was there any hint from Gerry, sort of, even if this doesn't continue, I'll keep you in mind for anything else in the future?
Well, I would never take anything for granted, but I mean, and there's some very good writers around, and I think it's to give them a fair crack of the whip too would be fair. But I just think that Gerry saw in me something that he really liked, and liked the sound I was developing. And sure, it would have been lovely to have written another series for Space Precinct, but I felt that I had... I think I felt at the time that I'd done enough to impress Gerry and sort of secure my place for any other future productions he was going to be involved with.
Well, what a fantastic interview. Chris gets some really good details out of Crispin there, doesn't he? About the recording of the Space Precinct thing. Very nice. But he didn't mention one particular story.
No. But we've got a very special guest, haven't we, Richard?
We do have a special guest. So Charlotte has come upstairs to join me in the spare room, because you remember, of course, working on Space Precinct, my darling.
I do still, just about.
Just about. And you're talking about Crispin Merrell and having a particular story about him?
Well, I think I remember this correctly. It was when the first time Crispin met John Glenn, which must have been when we were having the meeting about music cues for Protect and Survive.
Mm-hmm.
And Crispin said to John that they had met before because he had been an extra in Octopussy. Now,
amazing.
Do I remember that correctly, or have I dreamt it? I'm not sure. It was a long time ago.
Either way, it's brilliant.
Crispin,
yeah, that's great, isn't it? This is a nice little tidbit for you. I bet Chris didn't wheedle that out of Crispin when he met him. Maybe he did, because I've not heard the interview.
I haven't heard either. We could be doubling up here.
We're maybe just repeating old news here, mightn't we? But there we are. We heard it from the assistant editor's mouth.
Some
that must be true.
Perhaps partially remembered hearsay from a third party. Thanks, Charlotte.
Exactly. Thank you, Charlotte. Thanks for joining us.
All right.
You can go down and put the kettle on for me now.
Okay.
Well, excellent.
Lovely, and a very timely interview because, of course, as we know, the soundtrack is available now on the Gerry Anderson store. 1 million discs of 1,000 different tracks and 638,000 track notes and sleeve notes and photographs and all sorts.
Those are the precise numbers, Richard. Well done for remembering all of those. Yeah, no, it's a great addition to your Gerry Anderson collection. So go and grab it.
Yeah, that's right. Lovely. So part 2 of that interview next time, and I suppose
Yes.
we'll be hearing about the later projects that Crispin worked on.
Yeah, bit of Lavender Castle, bit of New Captain Scarlet, and bit of stuff beyond there, and Crispin's general reflections on all things Anderson. So that's exciting. So if you don't want to miss out on that, then you must subscribe.
Yeah.
And you'll be notified. So go and subscribe now. Go on. So any second, pause the podcast. Go and click go and press on the image of the pod. There'll be a subscribe button, then come back. So go and do that now.
Go on.
We'll wait.
Yeah, when you're ready.
Oh, well.
Good. Thank you.
Was nice of 2 of them to do it.
Yeah, wasn't it? Yeah.
Shame on you if you didn't do that. No, the more subscribers, the better, because it helps other people find us. So
yeah, that's right.
We want as many Gerry Anderson fans to get wind of this podcast as possible.
Right. Yes, you could put it like that. Yeah, great. Well, very good. So thank you for that, Chris. And now I suppose it's time to introduce Chris.
Oh yes. From Chris then to Chris now for the next episode of Chris's Randomizer. Over to you, Chris.
Chris.
No, Marina, no, I'm not doing it this week. No, it's just not fair. I mean, it's just so many Space 1999 Series 2s and so many Joe 90s. Even though I love Joe 90, but I love other shows too, and we've not even seen a UFO yet. And I just know that if I press that button, it's gonna be another Torchy or something about a killer rock. No, you do it. You do it this week. No, you press the button and you see how you like getting another Torchy or... What's going on? What? No, Marina, what? What's going on? What have you done? What? I'm hysterical. Well, yes, probably it's my default state, but... No, still not quite there. One more. Yeah, that's got it. Right, thank you. Oh, sorry I was so rude to you just there. I don't know what happened. Right, what's going on, Randomizer? What's all the noise about? Oh, well, this is all very interesting. Evidently, all that noise is what happens when the randomizer lands on part 2 of a 2-part story. Now, according to randomizer rules, that means we watch part 1 this week and part 2 next week. And which show does our first randomizer 2-parter hail from? Well, we need something pretty special to turn all this around, and I think we found just that. Here's Dick Spanner with part 1 of The Case of the Human Cannonball.
The name's Spanner. Dick Spanner. Private investigator.
Well, I'd been hoping for something a bit different, and the randomizer has certainly come through for us this time. Couldn't be more different, in fact. This is the very first episode of Dick Spanner. I should explain that I'm not watching... This was shown in 11 5-minute installments. I'm watching this in the 2-part compilation version that was later repeated on Channel 4. I couldn't put all of those individual episodes into the randomizer. That would be silly. And we don't want to be silly where Dick Spanner's concerned. It's not a silly show, as you probably know.
It was time to hit the sack. The sharp stab of pain made me realize it was a dumb move.
Now, there are several series that I've been... Oh, I just noticed a NASA probe from Terrorhawks in the background there. There's a lot of stuff like that in this show anyway. There's a few shows that I've been slightly hesitant to see come up in the randomizer. The Protectors, because I'm not sure the episodes are different enough to really to be able to give me much to say about them. Oh, this poor old lady. This poor old lady's been eaten by the octopus. Lavender Castle is another one that I'm not especially looking forward to covering because I've never seen any of them. I think it's the only show that I've never really sat down and watched episodes of. And then there's this.
This dame was standing by the window, toting a big piece of luggage.
Now, I love this show, but it's very difficult to talk about it on audio because it is such a visual show, as you heard earlier during the hit the sack gag.
Around the room, they came out on stalks.
Or even that, with their eyes coming out on stalks. It's not going to translate to audio, so let's see what we can do with this anyway.
She was a lonely chick in a big city. I took the case. I was back out on the street. I wondered what the hell she had in this thing.
Oh, there's in the background again. There's another something from the MEV from Terrorhawks, I think, as well. The claw thingy. This is so different from what you would traditionally associate a Gerry Anderson show with. I'm not sure how many people listening to this are going to be familiar with Dick Spanner. If you don't know it, it would be an enormous help to me if you could turn this off, go and watch it, and then I would feel slightly more confident talking about something that is so not just extremely visual,
and was still looking for my first lead.
With so many little in-jokes and touches in the background, some of which you can watch these 100 times and still not notice. But
difficult when you got 30 fingers.
I've forgotten where I was going. I just keep getting distracted by what I'm seeing.
Wearing a 10-gallon hat.
I'm staring into the background looking for... There's a picture of an eagle on the wall there. The animation on this is... that was somebody trying to kill Dick with a bomb has just killed themselves somehow. The animation on this is obviously...
spelt mob.
It's been produced on a budget, but it is, for what it is extremely well done. It's very intricate. It's not going to win any awards for
I couldn't refuse.
Pacing or realism or anything, but I don't think that's what they're trying to do. It's just cramming as many jokes on the screen as you can possibly get on there.
That was the grand. It was ticking like a cheap watch. I figured I had around 10 seconds before the big bang. I knew then it was going to be one of those nights.
And that is where the original episode 1 ended, but we're pressing on into episode 2. And one of the things I kind of love about the cliffhangers on these, is the resolution at the start of the following episode.
That's once.
Looks and feels completely different to the cliffhanger that ended the previous episode. It really is like they stopped for a week and then picked it up sometime later. The shots just don't match at all in the recaps, but it's another...
I was looking for a snitch by the name of Squealer.
Oh, there's a... Sorry, I'm this guy who's just collapsed behind Dick, a robot behind Dick in the bar has just collapsed. I think it was a robot in Space Police who sabotaged the train.
A weirdo in a corner was blowing his top.
Oh, and Mr. T is in the background. There's a Mr. T action figure in the background of the bar.
The guy had a face like 2 miles of broken road. I joined him. He was a rat and a fink, but I needed to know about Harry the human cannon.
Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, this series, not only in terms of the production, is it something unusual, something standout.
Jumpin' Jehoshaphat. A banana. Well, you win some, you lose some.
It is also something standout in terms of the Gerry Anderson shows and their sense of humour, because through the early Super Mario Nation shows we had this developing sense of humour, from fairly child-friendly humour in Supercar Fireball right through to Thunderbirds. Then Joe 90 kind of becomes self-aware on the bad humour front. Then the humour kind of drops off till sort of the second series of Space 1999, where it very rarely works, and then comes back full force in Terrorhawks.
Another day for the big pair.
And this feels very much like, if not a spiritual successor to Terrorhawks, then perhaps even something that takes place in the same anything can happen kind of universe. It's like the silliest things that can happen, the silliest things that would be far too silly to put in any other show. We'll just put them all in this.
I knew I was drinking too much. Some guys get ulcers. With me, it's rust.
It's so strange. What I also love is that there's no backstory for Dick at all. He is a robot.
Things were starting to swing.
And that's it.
But I had an appointment.
He lives in a parallel universe. Okay. And also, something I love about Dick is that he has absolutely no skills whatsoever. He is not only is he not qualified for this job at all of being a private investigator, he's a robot. And his only ability as a robot seems to be being able to move. He can't do anything else. It's quite spectacular.
Someone had tipped off the cops. I figured it was time to blow the scene.
However, he is an extremely endearing character, and
when I came back to the office,
I struggle. Obviously,
the 10th precinct.
Oh, here's Lieutenant O'Grady. He's another
a dead Mexican. The guy under the cover was an undercover.
What am I looking at? It's a Pac-Man ghost with a...
But O'Grady wouldn't listen.
This isn't working. I can't talk about this show.
I told him I didn't know any Juans, but he wouldn't buy it.
Oh, I'm going to have to try anyway. Yeah, so...
I was being framed.
If you haven't seen this show, obviously you can hear from the audios, from this audio. If you're at all familiar with Gerry Anderson work, you've seen Thunderbirds, you know that the voice of Dick Spanner here is being played by Shane Rimmer. Now, obviously we all love Scott Tracy, but I've never really looked at Scott and thought that nobody else could play that part. But I look at Dick and I listen to what Shane Rimmer is doing.
By Unter der Bar. Jump on Jehoshaphat. How many times can you be wrong?
And I can't imagine any other familiar voice actor from the Gerry Anderson universe, with the possible exception of David Healy, being able to do as good a job with this character as Shane did. It's just something about the look of the character.
The citizen I landed on went by the name of Luigi.
The fact that he has such bad luck. The fact that he is so useless. But Shane brings this sort of slightly heroic and yet very cynical edge to this strange character with a massive chin. That's not me, by the way. This is a one-eyed man who has just been squashed by Dick.
His arm was all busted to hell.
His arm has fallen off, and he was reinflating himself with a bicycle pump. Welcome to the world of Dick Spanner. This is normal.
It was a basement apartment on the mean side of the wrong side of the track. I was lying about as low as I could get.
Lots of photos from the production team, including, I recognise, Mr. Terry Adlam's photo on the wall there.
Her name was May East.
Oh, there's May East.
When she moved, it was like watching a sack full of bowling balls.
Another of our recurring characters who is just weird. She slightly reminds me of Janice from the Muppets in the fact that she has these huge lips. But with Janice, you can see her eyes.
A lube job.
May doesn't seem to have any eyes. She's just covered with hair.
May was a sweet kid. She said I could come down and see her anytime.
Also, she has
May's engine was starting to rev. It was time to make tracks.
A dress that's now spinning around like a propeller.
He was one of Mendoza's goons and looked ready to cut me up good.
I'm wondering with this show, and I suppose I probably should have done my research before this. Was this written with the visual gags in mind? Or were they fitting visual gags to what they already had in the script? Or was it a bit of both?
Where the hell had he gone? Then I
have to believe there was some degree of communication between whoever was writing the script and the people who were actually making the program.
My guess was he'd make a move pretty soon.
And of course, that person Writing the show is none other than Mr. Tony Barwick, taking his insanity to new heights, even beyond that of the It Star birth scene and various other mad bits in Terrorhawks. And somebody getting murdered in a drain.
I was in trouble. Big trouble.
Now we've, by this point, I think we're into like the... Was that the police cruiser from Space Police that's just gone past? Why is there a goldfish in the ball outside the What is going on?
He was trying to nail me to a bum rap.
Oh, where was I?
Hit on me with the dead bodies.
What was I talking about?
They wouldn't stand up in court.
Oh, right, yes. As we were saying, Tony Barwick wrote these, as if we didn't know, but all of this comes from the idea...
But O'Grady wasn't buying.
Of Terry Adlams. Terry was a special effects assistant on Terrorhawks. Also wrote Dyslexia Rules KO. Okay.
I figured O'Grady
Terry also wrote for the audio series of Terrorhawks a few years ago. And Terry is...
Things were quiet.
If you've listened to his Terrorhawks episodes, he is quite mad in the most wonderful way. And
on a back street off Main Street.
His idea matched with Tony Barwick's writing. It is just like, I don't know, it's a wonderful fountain of creativity that these two mad senses of humour can produce.
Mr. Spanner.
And top marks to Gerry Anderson for really getting behind this, getting behind such a strange concept, but also something that was so out of the ordinary for him. And something that's so out of the ordinary for anybody anyway.
And about all the dead Mexicans. It was the bill. Consultancy fee, $250. Payable immediately.
Or I'll send the boys round for your kneecaps, it says on the bottom of the letter there.
And a dog to go with it.
I'm sure there are people out there listening to this podcast who are a bit selective in terms of what Anderson shows they like and watch. I'm into everything, with one or two exceptions, obviously Torchy and, as I said, Lavender Castle I haven't seen. If you're the sort of person who only likes the live-action stuff or only likes the Supermarionation stuff, and there are other Gerry Anderson series you haven't seen, I think you really need to give this a look. I can't remember if the 5-minute versions are still on YouTube or not. It's possible that 5 minutes is all you're going to need to decide whether you like this show or not. But I think it's just such a superb concept, brought to life in such a strange way. I mean, there is an octopus strapped to a spinning wheel in the background of the bar. He doesn't need to be there. Doesn't serve any relevance to the plot. But they're doing it anyway.
Some dumb jerk was still on the wheel. I figured I'd try roulette.
That was it. That was the only reason that guy was there. Was for that joke. And this went out on...
The croupier said to place my bet. Jumpin' Jehoshaphat. It was wholemeal. I put it all on 13 black. Well, easy come, easy go.
As with Terrorhawks and 2 for the Price of 1 and It Star, I'm coming back to the idea that somebody had to sign off on this. Terry Adlam had to suggest this. Gerry Anderson had to agree with it. Tony Barwick had to... Well, I know Tony Barwick wouldn't have had to delve too deep into his imagination to come up with all this. But then they had to convince Channel 4 to actually show it.
I'd been hit. I'd heard a shooting.
That's just boggling. For those of you who don't know, it was shown on, I think it was a Sunday show that Channel 4 were running called Network 7, hosted by Janet Street Porter. And by all accounts, this was the highlight of the show. People would tune in just to see this, which was probably why it was repeated in a compilation version sometime later. It kind of fits with the early Channel 4 sort of experimental, pushing the boundaries of what they could do. which they've kind of lost a bit over the years, I think.
East apartment on the wrong side of the east side.
Yeah, this is the... Am I right in thinking this is the only Gerry Anderson show that's gone out on Channel 4?
She was a dab hand.
Otherwise it was ITV and
Something about the
repeats on the BBC, Sky and Channel 5.
The Big Top. Sure, a circus. Harry the Human Cannonball.
See, here's another shot. Mae East, who is currently making a fuss of Dick, has got a hammer, screwdrivers, a machine gun, what looks like a chainsaw, hanging on the wall of her boudoir.
There it was.
What does she do?
Circus in town. It's crazy. Why in tarnation would anybody shave a dog?
If you're wondering what exactly has happened so far, so am I. I have a hard time following the story of this thing, even when I'm not talking over it. So I am completely lost here. I don't know the show well enough to tell you what's going on.
Then I saw the barman's name was Finn. Right. Guess his first name was Mickey. It was around that time that my lights went out. Another dumb move. I was under arrest for being drunk in charge of a bald dog. And Grady was reading the riot act.
Okay, whatever.
I asked the lieutenant how he'd track me down.
This was back in the days when you could commission shows and write them and animate them while you were out of your skull on any substance imaginable, and it was okay. That's the only explanation I can come up with for what I'm seeing.
I'd taken a Greyhound to the edge.
Arnie Swartzberger is the decorator. Dick, move out of the way. I want to see what that poster says.
Was senior all over. There was something kind of familiar about him. I tried to figure out where I'd seen him before.
And now we're at a circus where Dick is about to get into a hot air balloon alongside the obvious baddie, who is now wearing a top hat. And the Peter Lorre henchman of his is standing by with a bow and arrow. I think, going back to what I said about how much I can't follow the story, to be honest, the story doesn't really matter. The fact that it's 5-minute episodes, it doesn't really give it time to develop much of a saga or anything.
The old hole in the bottom of the basket trick.
And here we are with our cliffhanger, our very first cliffhanger for the randomizer. This is quite something.
I had the feeling I knew exactly what was going to happen next.
I wasn't expecting it to be this cliffhanger. I was expecting something a bit more dramatic rather than Dick falling out of the sky yet again.
There was only one thing left to do. Someone help me!
And that's it. That's the end of our first visit to Dick Spanner. We'll be back with him next week, of course. Thank you, Dick. I think you've saved the randomizer with whatever it is we just sat through there. Totally mad, totally wonderful. Looking forward to more next week.
Well, thanks very much, Chris, from more of you there.
Yes, well done, Chris. Very, very good to hear from you again.
Yeah.
Part of me is wondering, is he going to come in and do another item for us now, or is it just the two of us for the end of the podcast?
I don't know.
Is he going to come in and sweep the floor and switch the lights off when we've finished, do you think?
Or maybe he's making the tea with Charlotte.
Yeah, maybe he is.
I don't know.
And actually, if you enjoyed, and we know you do, Chris's randomizer, and of course his Big Rat Bites on Fab Live, you'll be delighted to hear that he'll be joining us for the next Fab Live broadcast, as we mentioned earlier, on December the 3rd in the evening at 7 o'clock on the official Gerry Anderson Facebook page for our very Merry Christmas edition.
Yeah. Which is a great follow-on from this episode with the Chris and Crispin interview and the Chris randomizer for, this pod 20 Chris of the Gerry Anderson Chris cast.
Yeah. The Chris cast, that's great, exactly. Yeah, that's brilliant. And that will involve us, all three of us, being in the same room at the same time, and we might have a few hours previously to that to maybe record a little randomizer together. That's
it's going to be very cosy.
Yes, we'll see how we do.
But looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great.
So
Very good.
that is it, Richard.
Yeah, it is really, isn't it?
Yeah, quite a long one.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now then.
Unless
you're talking about my ancient wrinkly old Orin again. You really can't keep that in now.
I absolutely can. It's staying. So that's the end. If you want to get in touch, email us podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk. We'd like if you did. And also, please do consider sending us a voice message. That would be very jolly indeed.
Yes, I know a few of you are considering it. Well, we'll do it so we can play it out next time.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Just do it now.
Yeah.
Thank you. And we'll be in your ears next week.
Yes.
Probably.
We will. All right. Have
Bye.
a good week till then. Bye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
You can do an outro. Chris, Chrissy, Chrissy, Chris, Chris, Chrissy, Chrissy, Chris, Chris, Chrissy,
Should I do
Chrissy,
that?
Chris, Chris.
Well, you just did it. You've done it.
I have done it. Yeah.
I think essentially what we're heading for is that kind of tipping point where the podcast becomes Chris Dale's Gerry Anderson podcast with special guests Richard James and Jamie Anderson.
Hey, I'd be relatively happy with that if Chris wants to take on all the guff.
Of course, all the guff.
I mean the banter.
You mean the incisive content, the
carefully crafted scripts? Yeah. Well, no. Well, aren't we lucky to have a contributor such as Chris Dale, who
of course we are
willing to throw in all that effort and time?
Yes, absolutely right. Yeah,
watch 75 hours of torching.
I know. Who doesn't love a bit of Chris Dale? That's great. Yeah.
Well,
so
anyway,
I guess I'll see you next week then, Jamie, in the flesh.
Yeah. Well, by the time they hear this, it'll be tonight.
Ah, okay. I guess I'll see you tonight then, Jamie, in the flesh.
I'll see you now. I'll be seeing you now.
I'll be with you right now, I suppose.
Yeah. Let's have a coffee at Costa.
Let's do that.
Other coffee franchises are available.
But
right.
Not as good. All right. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.